every day. Oh, in the city of the Zuma, for every man and woman, nation's capital. So we're standing tall. It's the city of the Zuma, for Pupa and Muma, nation's capital. So we're standing tall. There is freedom, no segregation. Welcome to the city of my president.
Good morning, thanks for joining us on another insightful episode of Dateline Abuja on AIT. I'm Hawa Momo. Today on the program, we'll be discussing on the prevalence of domestic violence. But before that, let's take a look at the nationwide campaign on cybersecurity held by Nigerian Communications Commission here in the FCT. We'll be right back.
The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, began a nationwide campaign to enlighten the youth about the cyber criminals and harmful internet content.
The issue that is paramount to the Nigerian Communications Commission, to the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, is to ensure that you operate unfettered within the cyberspace, such that your health and other things that connect with you can be in order and are safe from disruptions of those who come to cyberspace to undertake some measure of criminality.
Addressing the students and other participants at the event, Pantami, who commended the NCC leadership for the Cybersecurity Awareness Initiative, stated that as federal government is driving digital economy through the ministry and its agencies, especially the NCC, it also places primacy on proper and continuous education of end users of telecom services.
The digital economy is an economy that is basically driven by digital technologies, by information technology. And that means that most of the activities that we'll carry out there will take place on cyberspace.
He added that together with its various agencies, the ministry is working to implement the 8 pillars of its recently unveiled National Digital Economy Strategy and Policy aimed at unleashing robust digital economy where everything is ICT driven towards accelerating economic prosperity.
Very important aspect that has to do with child online protection. Like you said, it is very difficult for parents these days to keep tab with what their kids are doing. And you do not want to expose, in the process of trying to develop the broadband of the country and so on, you expose your future generation to things that can destroy them. Many people have been exposed to things online that have eventually destroyed their capacity to be fully developed. And we don't want that as a country. That's why cybersecurity is something that is crucial, that has been addressed.
The pervasiveness of the internet and the proliferation of mobile phones make it difficult for parents and guardians to effectively monitor the online activities of their wards in comparison to the old system of connecting to the internet via desktops and laptops.
Cyberbullying can be the act of being threatened on the internet, or being bullied to do something you're not supposed to do on the internet also. Immediately, I don't like people being rude to me. Immediately I see that kind of message, I block them, straight up. Immediately they get caught up with cyberbullying, they should block the person immediately. And if the thing gets out of hand, they should either report to their parents or their guardian or so. And they should be very careful on the internet, they should learn self-control on the internet, and they should better be smart on internet also.
Cyberbullying is the use of the internet to bully people, like to tell people what they don't want to, like to make nasty comments about people and to make them feel insecure with themselves.
For the time management is just basically self-control. You need to have a time limit of how you're going to start and how you're going to end it. But then for the cyberbullying, you need to really focus on that part, because that's the worst of it all. You need to report to your parents immediately if you get any messages that are inappropriate.
While noting that the fight against cybercrimes transcends geographic jurisdictions, Dambata affirmed that the Commission is working to build strategic partnership and collaborative alliances with stakeholders, agencies and organizations to ensure safety of the cyberspace for users in Nigeria.
We are involved. When I say we, I'm saying the Nigerian Communications Commission is involved in all collaborative processes, both within the country and outside the country, that are culminating in passioning out of a national cybersecurity policy, national cybersecurity strategy, and the Cyber Crimes Act of 2015. All these, if you like, regulatory frameworks are available, and they're intended to give guidance on the diverse areas, of cybersecurity. The Cyber Crimes Act 2015, indeed, is due for review because it has been there since 2015. We have commenced the process of establishing a cybersecurity incident response team, CSOT.
Welcome back. Domestic violence is an issue of global concern. In man's culture, domestic violence has been an accepted fact of life and sadly still culturally accepted. On Monday, 27 January 2020, the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory convicted Mrs. Mariam Sanda for the murder of her husband, Biliaminu Bello, and sentenced her to death by hanging. It was a sad end to a tragic story of domestic violence that is now very prevalent in our society, from physical to verbal abuse to rape and even murder. It is evident that the authorities are not doing enough to stem the tide of domestic violence, which manifests itself in many forms. While spousal abuse indeed cuts across both sexes, women are predominantly the victims in our society. UN Women General Database on Violence Against Women put physical and sexual intimate partner violence in Nigeria at 16%. Today on the show, we'll be discussing the prevalence of domestic violence in Nigeria, different forms of abuse which may occur in the home, consequences of the individuals involved, and the society at large. Some predisposing factors of domestic violence and possible solutions and consequences. Stay with us. Well, my guest today on Dateline Abuja, I have Martin Obono. He's a lawyer and executive director, TAP Initiative. You're welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thanks for having me.
I also have Tosin Bolashere. She's the program officer, Global Rights. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about the prevalence of domestic violence in Nigeria. Before, we were talking about, earlier on off camera, we're talking about the various forms of domestic violence. Tosin, do you want to enlighten us more about that?
So domestic violence is actually violence, abuse, meted on an individual by an intimate partner or a family member. So it usually happens within a household, basically. And there's different forms of domestic violence. It could be psychological, emotional, physical, economic, and some people would say spiritual.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to give us like short definitions of all those things you just mentioned?
Okay. So psychological or emotional abuse is I would give an example of when let me use a woman against a man. So I wouldn't follow the usual trend of men against women. So a woman constantly abuses a man, brings him down, and tries as much as possible to diminish his self-esteem. So that's emotional and psychological abuse. So you try as much as possible to bring that person low and take away that person's dignity. That's emotional and psychological abuse. Physical abuse, assault, beating, sexual violence, rape is also a form of physical abuse meted against individuals. Economic abuse, so you prevent a person from pursuing an undertaking that would bring some money. So you say you can't go out to do this, you can't buy this, you can't engage in this trade and all of that. So
that's within the home.
Yeah, within the home. So you deprive that person of liberty to engage in some form of economic exchange, basically. And then for spiritual, which is it's new. It's new. So you limit a person from holding opinions about beliefs, religious beliefs, cultural beliefs, and even values. So you say you cannot practice this kind of religion. You cannot say this. So that's spiritual abuse.
Oh, so somebody who doesn't allow a spouse, for example, to attend a particular kind
it's spiritual abuse. You're depriving the person of their human rights, basically.
In the home?
Association, yes.
Wow, good. So Martin, this is interesting. What does the law say about domestic violence?
So we've got various laws in Nigeria that actually regulates domestic violence. You have the violence.
Okay, now let's talk about gender-based violence. You know, when we say gender-based violence, a lot of people think it has to do with only women. Do you want to say something about that?
Okay, so I'll give a definition of what gender-based violence is. Gender-based violence is harm, willful harm and abuse done against the person with an intention to cause physical, psychological, emotional damage to the person. And it's actually, when I say person, remember I haven't said man or woman. Yeah. So gender means male or female.
But when we say gender, we always think it's women.
Because we agree that men are also victims of gender-based violence. But then statistics worldwide have shown that women are disproportionately affected by gender-based violence. So you have the UN statistics that says 1 in 3 women will be abused based on their gender in their lifetime. And 1 in 4 girls would be abused based on their gender before 18.
Wow.
This is as opposed to men. 1 in 10 men, that's the official statistics, 1 in 10 men. So you have women who are more victims of this abuse. And that's why many organizations, many intervention programs would use the term gender-based violence and violence against women interchangeably. And that is why the UN launched the 16 days of activism, which is about gender-based violence, but then against women. So we agree that men are victims, but women...
This is interesting. I love the fact that you said against women, because you will never find like a forum or NGO talking about domestic violence against men. What you hear most is, if we say GBV, we immediately just say it's women. Martin, what does the law say about that?
So, before I go into what the law says about that, I think I'll need to also throw some light in what she said.
Okay.
So basically, domestic violence or violence in itself, based on the definitions she already gave, doesn't necessarily have to do with physically hitting somebody.
Yeah.
It can be abuse, verbal abuse. It could be diminishing someone's self-esteem. It could be psychological trauma. It could just be even denying your spouse or your husband food in the home because of certain things he has done. So any form of punishment that is meted on the person, it's kind of an abuse. And so most men don't come out to cry about the violence they experience in their homes. And so we may not be able to have statistics that...
But now in Nigeria, it's growing. Men are violated, men are being killed at home.
Absolutely.
So it's something that we have to look into.
Now that is physical violence, So the moment we begin to examine the narrative and expand the conversation further to encourage men to speak up more, and based on the issues that they actually face, I think the statistics will measure up a little bit, and we'll also understand that men also go through a whole lot of abuses or abuse from their spouses.
What kind of abuses do men go through?
The ones I've mentioned initially, like diminishing your self-esteem, abusing your husband, especially comparison. That's your mate. Your mate just bought a Mercedes-Benz. What are you doing at home? You're not man enough.
So that's domestic violence.
It is you're diminishing the man's self-esteem. You're making him feel less of a man. And he may not come out to say anything because he's a man and the society has already built him to be a strong person and to show that he's the head of the home. So he can't complain to anyone. about the kind of abuse he's going through. And so one day he just flips and slaps the woman and goes physical, because that's the way he also feels he can express himself.
Why? Well, why?
That's the way he feels, because men are naturally are physical people. Right? Yeah, they
are you trying to justify the reason?
No, I'm not justifying. I'm just giving an example. Okay. So when we are making these comparisons and educating the public about the narrative that go out there, we need to also understand, because most women don't even know that abusing their spouses or their husband or their partner verbally is also a set of violence.
Yeah.
Most people don't know. They just think they are expressing themselves. You know, you call your husband's name and your husband names, and you just think you're expressing yourself, you know, your anger and all that. But it's also another form of violence against the person. So you're abusing the man himself, but he won't come out to speak. So, however, in under the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, there is also a provision of the law that talks about emotional violence and psychological.
Oh, really? So, for example, if I insult my husband,
yes,
he can report me to the police.
Absolutely,
to the law.
Absolutely, you can.
And I'll be penalized for it.
You go to jail for.
What are the causes of domestic violence? How does it breed in men, especially, since we're saying, you know, just 1 in 10 men are being, victims.
Okay. Can I say something about this? So, we have what we call the cycle of abuse, where the victim goes on to become the abuser. So let's go back to the family unit. A boy grows in a family where he sees his mother constantly being battered by his father, kicked, demeaned in the presence of people, and he thinks, probably this is what I should be. This is what men do. And so at that point, he is a victim, because a child is not meant to experience that kind of abuse in a home. But then he grows up, that's the cycle of abuse, and does exactly the same thing he saw his father doing on his own wife or girlfriend or all of that. So that's the cycle of abuse. The victim always, in most cases,
that means we have to go home first.
Exactly. That's why for interventions, I said there is a limit to what NGOs, organizations can do. The family unit has to be the front liner in any change that is going to occur in gender-based violence interventions, basically. Another thing we could actually do is to advocate for an end to the culture of violence, or to the culture of silence.
Yes.
So
breaking the silence. This time is that.
Men are abused, they can't speak because they would say he's weak. Why will I say my wife beats me? Why will I say that?
Not necessarily beats.
No, but women beat their men.
Beat their husband. I mean, I know a lecturer who the wife used to beat. And that's why I said.
But that we tell as a weak man.
Exactly. And that's the stigma that we have in the society. A man cannot speak because he'll be perceived as being weak. A woman cannot speak because she's protecting her man and she respects the institution of marriage so much.
This cycle you're talking about, if she doesn't speak, it can affect her son.
But that's what it is.
So the culture of silence, basically, we need to begin to express ourselves more. And I, for once, wasn't somebody who's quite expressive. I learned to begin to.
Have you been abused before?
Not in that. Not anywhere I can point at. But men generally are told to bottle up and man up.
Yes.
So something happens to you, man up. You know, don't cry, don't express.
So you say they shouldn't man up again?
No, a man should be human.
Oh, I like that.
You've got to be human. If there's time for you to cry, cry. If you want to scream, scream. You know, whatever it is that is bothering you, if someone is doing something to you that you're not happy about, express yourself, call the person, talk to the person, tell the person, let the person know. So men would have their wives call them names, and instead of them addressing the issue, they just walk away. But they take a walk and go somewhere else and feel the pain, nurse the pain before they come back home.
People are frustrated. I guess that's why they take it out from home.
So they get frustrated.
They need to just come out.
So they need to speak.
And to address this culture of violence, of silence, for us, Global Rights, we created an Uber-like service that gives you. It's a website. You can also call. It gives you a breakdown of every organization that deals with sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria.
Oh, thanks.
And
share that with us.
Yes, and on the website, we understand that people are usually ashamed to talk about their abuse.
Men or women?
Both of them.
Do men come? Do men come?
Yeah, there was a man who came to say, I was sexually abused. I've never said this before. And yeah, so we have them like that. But then there are very few who would come up face to face to you to tell you, I was sexually abused, or my wife beats me, or this or that. So what the website does is allow you create a pseudonym. So you can report your case anonymously.
Good.
And so we chat with you and provide you with solutions, even without knowing your name or where you're from or any of that. The only time we get to know you as per your identity is when you feel comfortable enough to come up to say, this is me. But then we guide you through the process, and even when we cannot help you, help you with your solution, we refer you to organizations that would be able to do that for you.
Breaking the silence. What do you think people need to know about breaking the silence? You know, earlier off camera, we're talking about some people who, you know, highly placed people who don't talk about these things. So if we have people in high authority who can actually come out to talk about them being violated at home, nobody want to come out.
So people need to learn to begin to speak up and come out. So examples also need to be made of people. So for example, you have people, senators, judges, legislators, governors, clerics who abuse their spouses at home, you know, and they can't talk because of societal standing, or because they want to protect image of business or family name or whatever it is. But people need to begin to come out and speak about this violence that they experience at home. So that is the first step of breaking the culture of silence.
Do you think they will come out to talk?
Well, because at the end of the day, your life is at stake. We see a lot of people who have been murdered, cold-blood murder in Nigeria, men killing wives, wives killing men, or spouse or their husbands. And if you don't speak, you're contributing to statistics. So one day you will become part of the statistics.
Or your child.
Or your child will become part of the statistics. So you need to come out. Life first, that is the most important thing. So people should learn how to come out, and they can find help in the society. That's the first most important part of breaking the culture of silence.
When NGOs escort victims to the police station, you see the police officer who attends turns into a counselor and then starts to advise the woman to say, why would you do this to your husband? Don't you know he's the head? So just go and beg him. And then many of these women, again, are constrained in such relationships because they do not have the financial freedom to escape such relationships. So you have the VAP Act, which is only applicable in Abuja, and then as at today, 10 other states have domesticated. So the VAP Act says you are meant to be compensated. Apart from the penalties, jail time and fine, you're meant to be compensated as the abuser, as the abused, the victim. But then how many of these compensations go out?
That means, I'm sure in homes, a lot of people, everybody, maybe 90% of people, by my own statistics, talking to both of you now, have been in one way or the other being abused.
Yes.
Because you talked about psychological, emotional, and even spiritual. There's no way. So are you saying you go to the police station now to say I've been spiritually violated or
abused? They would laugh at you at first.
So that's why the campaign and the education.
But this is not something that we should laugh about, because we know, we talked about off camera, people are dying, people are killing their spouses, and it's not going to stop if we do not start talking about it now. Do you have a final word for victims out there who are keeping silent? Thank you. You're sharing your numbers with us.
Yes, I will.
The final word for people.
Final word. Don't die in silence. People need to come out, and you should come out if you have been violated.
And from the man's point of view as well.
For a man, don't think you're man enough.
Good.
You just have to come out and speak up as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so gender-based violence is basically as a result of unequal power relationships. And to address this, we would have to start to teach girls and boys mutual respect. So when you respect yourselves and you do not see one as superior to the other, relationships will thrive. And many of these instances we see, many of these incidences we see would reduce. And please, if you're going through any form of violence, report. God helps, but then prayer does not help everything.
Okay, sorry, last one. People should not also report. Do you think it's wise for people who have been abused to run to religious, religious bodies first, because that's what they know. You just brought my attention to that.
Yeah, so a pastor would tell you, wives, submit yourself to your husband. He's the head of the family. So whatever he does, even if it is so bad, please pray for him. God is going to change him. And they keep praying until they get killed in such relationships.
Thank you so much. I've been talking to Martin Obono. He's a lawyer and executive director, TAP Initiative. Thank you so much for being part of Deadline again.
Thank you.
And Tosin Bolashere, she's a program officer and a counselor, Global Rights, here in Abuja. Thank you so much for being part of us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the program is Deadline Abuja. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. We must understand that ignoring the subtle signals of violence can only lead to fatal consequences, as we have witnessed lately. The government should establish and fund counseling centers at all local government levels and employ professional counselors to help victims. Seminars and workshops should be organized to create awareness at these forums. In schools, during PTA Prize Giving Day, there should be organized small talks to create awareness. And television programs should adopt short talks on domestic violence. Church and mosques should also organize seminars and outreach programs where professional counselors are invited to enlighten the people on the need for a violence-free society. And that's the much you can take today on the show. Thanks for keeping the date with us. Kindly follow us on any of our social media handles shown right now on your TV screen. Join me same time, same station. I'm Hawa Momo. Have a lovely day.